In a distant part of the galaxy, the Korthari Empire ruled with fear and strength. They had crushed over 300 planets and left ashes in their path. Their armies were unmatched, and their technology was far beyond anything the other species had. When they looked toward the blue planet called Earth, they didn't see danger. They saw a weak world ready to be taken. The Korthari scanned Earth's radio signals and laughed. Humans talked about peace, music, and family. They saw no signs of space travel or advanced weapons. To the Korthari, humans were nothing more than talking animals with soft hearts and fragile bodies. The Empire decided it was time to add Earth to its growing list of conquered worlds. No warnings were sent. No deals were offered. The invasion began in silence. Above Earth, black alien warships appeared like shadows in the sky. People looked up and saw their arrival. Most didn't understand what they were seeing. Cities paused. News stations tried to explain, but nothing made sense. Then, power grids failed. Satellites stopped working. Planes dropped from the air. Panic filled the streets as the world plunged into confusion. But Earth did not scream. It watched. The Korthari landed small squads in major cities. Their soldiers walked with pride and arrogance. They expected humans to bow or run in fear. Instead, they found resistance in strange forms. Some humans threw rocks. Some stood silently in their paths. Others ran, not out of fear, but to gather others. There was no global plan, no central command. But everywhere they landed, they met. Human eyes that did not blink. The Korthari general on the command ship smiled coldly. "So this is your courage?" he said as he watched humans try to fight back with old weapons. He gave the order to use light cannons to destroy the resistance. But when the weapons fired, they fizzled out. The energy beams bent in the air and vanished. Technicians checked the systems again. Nothing was wrong. But nothing worked. In the mountains, forests, and oceans, strange activity was detected. Earth's magnetic field shifted. Storms formed quickly and without warning. Sea levels changed slightly, then returned. Volcanoes rumbled, but did not erupt. Earth was reacting, but not in the way science could explain. It felt like the planet itself was watching, waiting, and deciding how to respond. One squad entered a village in South America and never came out. Drones were sent to search, but the signal was lost. Later, a Korthari patrol found the village empty except for a circle of Korthari weapons stacked neatly in the center. On one wall, a message was burned into stone with heat. It read, "You are not welcome here." The Empire could not explain how the humans had done it without tech. In a desert region, an entire alien transport crashed without being touched. The ship's systems had shut down one by one. The pilot reported feeling like the sky itself had become heavier. After impact, the ship was empty. No bodies were found. Only sand and a small wooden cross stood where the crew should have been. The cross had one word carved into it: "Go." In space, the Korthari tried to send a second wave. Larger, stronger, and prepared for resistance. But as they approached Earth's orbit, their ships began spinning out of control. Gravity pulled harder than it should have. The stars around them blurred. Time felt strange. Scientists on board said Earth's orbit had become unnatural. Some called it a defense system. Others called it something worse. They called it alive. One alien ship managed to stay steady. It sent a signal to the planet below, demanding surrender. What came back was not a scream, not a shout, not a threat. It was one sentence spoken in a calm, human voice. "You are not predators here." The voice echoed through their systems, even after they shut them down. Some believed it came from Earth itself. Others believed it was something older than any species. The Korthari Empire had made a mistake. They thought Earth was weak because it was quiet. They thought humans were prey because they sang songs and told stories, but they did not understand the silence. It was not fear, it was patience. The humans were not panicking. They were watching, learning, and preparing to strike back in a way no one expected. And so began the war that was never truly declared. A war where Earth did not rise with noise, but with purpose. The night sky over Earth burned red where the alien ships hovered in silence. Most people had never seen anything like it, but panic was not the first response. It was something deeper, like the Earth itself held its breath. Every screen on the planet flashed with warnings, but then all signals cut off. The aliens expected to see humans running and screaming. Instead, they watched as entire cities powered down and vanished from their sensors. The Korthari High Command gathered above Earth in their flagship, amused by how little resistance they faced. One admiral mocked Earth's quiet as cowardice. "They are afraid to respond," he declared. Yet their machines began to glitch more than usual. Command screens flickered. Hulls began vibrating slightly. Engineers couldn't explain it. The systems reported no enemy contact, but failures increased. Then, one of their planetary outposts went silent. No alarms, no distress signals, just silence. A scout ship was sent down. They found nothing but ash and melted metal. Not a single Korthari body was recovered, not even bones. Only one small camera drone had partial footage. It showed a shadowy figure approaching at impossible speed, ripping through armored guards. Without weapons, the footage was analyzed by their best minds. It made no sense. The figure wore no tech, no armor, but moved like a living storm. It appeared to be human, though nothing like the ones in their old data. It had glowing eyes, and its skin seemed to shimmer like heat. The alien generals dismissed it as human propaganda until more footage arrived. A second Korthari outpost was destroyed. This time, they lost an entire battle tank division. One survivor returned in a pod, shivering in fear. He screamed nonsense in their language, repeating the same phrase, "It walks in fire." When asked to describe the attacker, he said it was a man with burning hands and a voice that made the air crack. The Korthari leadership began to worry. This wasn't how weak species behaved. Earth was not fighting back with ships or nukes. It was using fear. It was using the unknown. The next day, their long-range satellites picked up an unexpected signal. It came from Earth's old transmission arrays, believed to be offline. The message was short, but every empire heard it clearly. "You are not predators here." At first, many thought it was a joke. But then, one by one, the Korthari war drones began falling from the sky. Some exploded mid-air, others simply dropped dead like flies. The military scrambled to understand the pattern. It was not sabotage. It was as if something on Earth simply rejected their technology. The ground rejected their landers. The sky swallowed their flyers. The Korthari panicked and tried to scan the planet more deeply, but every scan failed. Something in the Earth's atmosphere blocked their sensors. It wasn't a jamming signal. It was natural, or maybe something worse. Geologists from the Korthari warned that tectonic activity was not matching Earth's known data. There were massive power surges under the crust. Like something ancient was waking up. Meanwhile, humans on the ground moved silently. Old shelters reopened. Forests that had been untouched for years suddenly filled with groups of armed civilians. They weren't part of any official army. They were farmers, hunters, engineers, and former soldiers. But they all had one thing in common. They weren't scared. They were prepared. And they had been watching the skies longer than the Korthari realized. Alien commanders sent in a new team, elite hunters with advanced cloaking tech. Their mission was simple: capture a human alive. The team never returned. Their tracker beacons were found buried in a cave system, and audio logs captured something eerie. It was a child's laughter echoing in the darkness. The cave walls were covered in symbols no one recognized. One of the alien technicians While decoding the strange language, noticed something disturbing. The markings were older than any human civilization, but they referenced stars, movements, and war. The final symbol matched the Korthari war flag, but it was crossed out. The log ended with a message scrawled in red. "This has happened before. It ended badly for you." Back in orbit, the Korthari flagship tried to send a retreat signal, but it was intercepted. A human voice responded. Calm, clear, and without emotion. "Leave or be buried in your pride." The Admiral ordered all weapons locked on Earth, but targeting systems went offline again. A wave of unknown energy had just passed through their ships. It wasn't an attack. It was a warning. The Korthari had arrived thinking Earth was soft, weak, primitive, but now they had no eyes, no ears, and no control. The Earth had gone dark not from fear, but because it was watching. Above Earth, the largest Korthari city ship drifted in uneasy silence. It had been designed to control entire star systems. Its black armor had never been pierced. Its weapons had wiped out 5 civilizations in the past decade. Yet now it floated, powerless, orbiting a planet that gave no commands, no threats, and no cries for mercy. Only silence answered every scan. The crew noticed strange vibrations running through the ship's metal. Engineers opened panels to find internal wires twisted as if pulled by invisible hands. A humming began, low at first, then louder, echoing through the walls. It wasn't coming from Earth. It was coming from inside the city ship. Then, without warning, gravity reversed inside the corridors. Soldiers floated helplessly as lights exploded above them. No enemy ship fired, no missiles came. But compartments imploded as if the metal had lost the will to hold together. Oxygen vanished in sections of the ship, and some crew members collapsed gasping. Backup systems should have engaged. They didn't. A frightened captain whispered a forbidden thought. Is Earth doing this with just a thought? No one laughed this time. No one even replied. On the ground, a Korthari Beast-class walker moved through a desert in Africa. It was the size of a tower, powered by fusion cores, and armed with heat cannons. It was meant to crush human resistance in one region with fear alone. But something moved in the sand beneath it. Something too fast for their scanners to follow. One moment, the machine stood proud. The next, it sank like it had been pulled from below. Footage recovered from the walker's black box revealed a final moment. A human figure sprinted up its legs without armor. He placed one hand on its reactor core, then everything went white. No explosion, no weapon blast. The machine simply folded inward, its metal bones snapping like dry twigs. That walker had survived wars on acid planets. But it had not survived Earth. The Korthari leaders sent orders across all fleets to pull back and regroup. But the retreating ships found their exit routes blocked. Wormholes that had been stable for centuries suddenly destabilized. Engines stalled mid-jump. They had never seen a planet capable of controlling gravity beyond its own surface. And yet, Earth was bending space like it was breathing. Commanders tried broadcasting surrender messages, but nothing was heard. Every communication satellite launched by the Korthari exploded before reaching low orbit. Some vanished entirely, as if swallowed by the sky. The Earth's magnetic field had changed shape intentionally. It was no longer just protecting the planet. It was acting like a shield that chose what could enter and what could leave. Alien science teams discovered something worse. Earth's biosphere had shifted. Forests moved. Plant life adapted overnight. Spores were released that weakened Korthari respiratory systems. Even the water seemed toxic to their soldiers now. A team found one of their own dead, bloated, his lungs full of blue pollen. Next to his body, someone had carved into a rock, "This world belongs to us." High above, Korthari leaders argued in panic. One faction wanted to send their strongest psychic warriors to battle Earth's will directly. The other urged retreat and full quarantine. But the final decision came too late. Earth didn't wait. A sudden wave of light burst from the North Pole seen as far as Mars. It wasn't a weapon, but a message written in energy. 3 simple words burned into the minds of every Korthari who saw it. You came uninvited. One alien general tried to speak back, but his voice cracked and his mind went silent. The galaxy had feared the Korthari for generations. Their empire had lasted longer than any known star. But Earth, in its quiet fury, was not just defending itself. It was hunting. Alien ships tried hiding on the moon, behind Jupiter, even inside gas giants. But one by one, they were found and deactivated. A secret base on Titan received a visitor. The cameras went black. When they came back online, every alien inside the base was unconscious, and a message was burned into the ceiling with heat. It was in perfect Korthari script. You are not safe in the shadows. Experts were baffled. Earth had never seen Korthari language before, yet it now used it fluently. Earth was listening, watching, and now speaking in their tongue. Terror spread faster than light. Other alien species started pulling back from human space without being asked. They watched from afar. Not because they cared for the Korthari, but because they feared what Earth had become. A world that fought back without warships. A planet that remembered the last time someone tried to take it. And this time, Earth would not forget. The Korthari came as apex predators. They thought Earth was just another prey. But now the roles had reversed, and they were running. Asterisk in the snowy mountains of the American Rockies, a Korthari scout ship fell from the sky. It struck the side of a cliff, slid across a frozen ridge, and stopped against a tree. Smoke rose from the twisted metal. Inside the broken cockpit, a young Korthari cadet named Varex groaned in pain. Her breathing was weak. Her bones were cracked. And worst of all, her communication gear was gone. She crawled from the wreckage, one leg dragging uselessly behind her. Her body armor was sparking. The cold bit into her alien skin. Back home, she had trained in harsh conditions, but Earth's chill was different. It was silent, sharp, alive. She tried to send a distress signal using a backup chip in her arm. The screen blinked once, then died. Varex realized she was completely alone. For the first time in her life, fear touched her heart. Not because of enemies, but because the land itself felt like it was watching her. Trees groaned in the wind. Shadows moved strangely across the snow. Hours passed. She built a small shelter with her knife and parts from her ship. Her hands were shaking. She had never known what it meant to be hunted. The next morning, she heard footsteps. Soft ones, crunching snow carefully. She gripped her weapon and aimed. A shadow moved past a tree. She took a breath and jumped forward, ready to attack. But what stood there wasn't a soldier or beast. It was a human boy. Maybe 10 years old. Thin, bundled in winter clothes, holding a stick like a sword. They stared at each other. She aimed her weapon. He didn't flinch. He stepped forward slowly and tilted his head. "You're not from here," he said with a calm voice. Varex blinked. This wasn't what she expected. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't angry. He was curious. She lowered her weapon slightly. Her injuries made her dizzy. The boy noticed and reached into his backpack. He handed her something wrapped in cloth. It was warm bread, homemade. She didn't understand why he offered it. She could have killed him. But he smiled and sat on a rock nearby. "You're hurt," he said. "You shouldn't be out in the cold." She hesitated, then accepted the bread. It tasted strange, but it warmed her chest. Not from the heat, but from the gesture. Over the next few days, the boy returned again and again. He brought water, blankets, and simple food. He taught her how to light a fire without tech. She listened without speaking much. Something about him was different. He didn't ask questions about space or war. He asked her name. He asked what she liked. He made her feel like a person, not an enemy. She finally told him her name. "Varex," He nodded and told her his. Caleb. He said his father used to hunt deer in the mountains and taught him how to read animal tracks. You don't walk like a deer, he laughed. You walk like a falling tree. She rolled her eyes. But for the first time, she laughed too. A strange, soft laugh that surprised even her. She asked why he helped her. He shrugged. Because you were alone and hurt. That's not right. She didn't understand. Korthari culture believed weakness should be crushed. Enemies deserve no mercy. But this boy didn't follow that. He gave kindness without expecting anything in return. And somehow that kindness began to change something inside her. At night, she stared at the stars and thought about her people. They had invaded this planet with arrogance, called themselves apex predators, treated Earth as prey. But what she saw now was not weakness. It was strength in the form of warmth, resilience in the form of quiet humans who could turn nature itself into their ally. She saw a world that had been underestimated. When she was strong enough to walk again, she climbed with Caleb to a high ledge. From there, she saw distant lights flickering in the valley. Human camps, organized, calm, not afraid. She turned to him and said, "Your people are not like ours." He nodded. "Good," he said. "Because we're not trying to be like anyone else. We're just trying to protect home." She took a deep breath. The air burned her lungs. She looked at Earth again, really looked. This planet was wild, harsh, but it wasn't cruel. It was testing them. It was pushing back against those who didn't respect it. The Korthari thought they were the hunters. But Earth was always the one watching, always the one waiting. And now it was speaking through its children. Virex activated her backup distress signal, this time with her own message. It went to the Korthari fleet still hiding in orbit. She spoke slowly, her voice steady. "This world is not what we thought. These people are not what we were told. If we do not leave, we will be erased." She ended the message and looked at Caleb, who was skipping rocks into the snow. In that moment, Virex understood something she had never been taught in her training. Power isn't just in weapons or war. Sometimes it lives in the hands of a child with kindness in his heart. Across Earth, the humans were no longer hiding. They had watched quietly as the Korthari invaded, destroyed, and boasted. But now the silence had ended. Without official armies, without high-tech ships, humans began to move. In cities, small groups took control of alien tanks using wires and handmade tools. On farms, old rifles were taken down from walls. Children were taught how to track without drones. Korthari patrols vanished more often. Some left their ships to search for humans and never returned. Others were found tied up, unharmed, but confused. Their weapons were gone, their armor stripped. And a note was left behind each time, written in plain English: "Go home." The aliens didn't understand why they were being spared. But the message was clear. Earth wasn't just resisting. It was teaching. One by one, Earth's communication towers began lighting up again. Old satellites blinked awake. But this time, they weren't broadcasting fear. They were sending out data coordinates, frequencies, and patterns. The global human network had been rebuilding quietly in the background. Not through AI, but through engineers, hackers, and students who had trained for this day. When the aliens thought Earth was defenseless, humans were upgrading. A single human warplane, once considered outdated, flew across the sky toward a Korthari destroyer. The aliens laughed. But the pilot wasn't aiming to destroy the ship. He broadcasted a code that shut down the destroyer's shields. The Korthari had unknowingly copied Earth's old systems into their own, and Earth used it like a backdoor. That day, the destroyer was pulled down by its own weight and gravity. In underground bunkers, retired soldiers trained civilians, not to fight with rage, but with precision. Every bullet counted. Every movement mattered. They didn't waste time or energy. They hunted the hunters with discipline. Some used traps made of wood and rope. Others hacked into alien drones and redirected them back to their makers. The war had changed. Now Earth was choosing the battlefield. The Korthari High Command tried launching a new weapon from orbit, a heat pulse, to burn half a continent. But it never reached the surface. Above the clouds, something intercepted it. Not a missile, not a ship, just silence. And when they scanned the area, all they found was one strange reading. The Earth's magnetic field had shifted again, as if blocking the weapon with its own will. Fearing a complete loss, the Korthari Council ordered their elite unit into battle. The best of the best, trained for planetary takeover. They descended into a jungle in South America. Their mission: capture a human leader. Within hours, all signals were lost. The final image captured was of the jungle swallowing their ship like it was alive. No gunfire, no screams. Just roots growing through steel. Panic spread through Korthari. Ranks, they could no longer contact half their fleet. Earth had become a dead zone for their signals. Worse, some of their own ships turned against them. Human infiltrators had boarded and taken control using simple tools and grit. A janitor in a space station rerouted power. A miner overloaded a reactor with a spoon. A high schooler cracked a Korthari encryption key from a basement. Alien generals gathered for an emergency meeting above Mars. They argued about pulling out completely. Some refused, shouting that Earth was only one world. But others stayed quiet. They had seen the footage. They had seen humans walking through fire, carrying wounded, laughing in storms, building shelters out of rubble. And worst of all, they had seen humans adapt faster than anything they'd ever known. Back on Earth, Caleb and Varex walked along a cliffside. She had recovered well. Her injuries were healed. But something deeper had changed in her. She no longer spoke of conquest. She listened now. She watched as humans built food stations and repaired cities without fear. She asked Caleb why they weren't angry. He simply said, "We're too busy protecting each other to waste time on hate." Varex sent one final message to her people. She used her highest encryption and broadcast it across the Empire. It was short and filled with truth. Earth cannot be taken. It cannot be owned. If you continue, you will fall. This is not a planet. This is a spirit that fights. The Korthari Council tried to stop the signal, but it was too late. Others had heard it. Other empires were now listening too. Soon, messages began arriving from outside the solar system. Races that once mocked Earth now asked for talks. Treaties, peace. They had seen what Earth had done to the Korthari, not with destruction, but with courage. Not with fear, but with resolve. A planet that fought with its heart was more dangerous than any army. Earth had no emperor, no throne. But now, the galaxy watched it with respect. And then came the final signal, broadcast on every frequency. It was not from a general or a king. It was a voice of a human girl reading a poem into a microphone. A simple child's voice, steady and soft. "We are not perfect, but we are not prey. We do not run, we do not bow, we rise, we protect, and we endure." That was the moment the war ended. Asterisk in the dark space beyond Earth's orbit. The last remaining Korthari city ship drifted in silence. Its massive engines were offline. Its once glowing weapons were cold. The command deck, once filled with proud voices, now held only quiet. The Admiral stood alone, watching the blue and green world below. He had led invasions across star systems, but now he watched a planet that had defeated him without leaving its soil. Messages from other empires flooded his screens. Some mocked him, others offered condolences. A few begged for recordings of Earth's strange defenses. But nothing hurt more than the silence from his own homeworld. No rescue, no backup, no orders. Earth had not destroyed them, but had erased their purpose. His crew sat still, waiting for something that would not come. The war was over, and Earth had won without asking for victory. On Earth's surface, humans rebuilt. Not just buildings or roads, but trust. People who had once lived far apart now worked side by side. They shared food, knowledge, and stories. Farmers helped engineers. Children helped doctors. In one small village, the people named their community New Hope, a place where the first Korthari prisoner was treated, not tortured. The village children called him Iron Face and painted his armor with flowers across the galaxy. Earth's image changed. It was no longer seen as soft or backward. It was seen as something ancient, something wild, and something alive. Empires that had prepared weapons now prepared envoys. Ships arrived not with soldiers, but with scholars. They asked questions, they listened. They came not to conquer, but to learn. And Earth did something no one expected. It welcomed them. Varrock stood at the heart of the United Earth Defense Center, once an old observatory. Now it was the beating pulse of Earth's communication with the stars. She wore no armor. Her weapons had been left behind. She worked beside Caleb, who had grown taller and sharper. They coordinated messages to space, translated ancient scripts, and built peace where once there had only been fear. One day, a small group of alien leaders asked a question. Why did Earth fight? Without attacking, Caleb answered quietly. Because Earth is not a weapon. It is a mirror. It reflects what you bring. They didn't understand, so he explained. When you came with guns, we gave you resistance. When you came with silence, we gave you questions. But when you come with peace, we give you friendship. That became Earth's new motto, written in every language, including Korthari. We reflect what you bring. Some called it weak. But those who had seen the war knew it was the strongest truth in the stars. Earth had not become a leader by force. It had become a symbol by standing its ground. It had become the place that others looked to when afraid. The planet that never knelt. Years passed. New trade lines opened. Human food became a rare treasure. Across galaxies, Earth stories were translated and shared. Soldiers who once fought became poets and teachers. Caleb traveled to alien schools, teaching children about peace through survival. Varrock returned to her people, not as a soldier, but as a bridge. She helped stop a civil war before it started, simply by telling Earth's story. And deep within Earth, in the mountains where it all began, a monument was built, not of a soldier, not of a hero, but of a child offering bread to an enemy. The statue stood in silence, holding out one hand. On the base, the words were carved simply, "This is how it began." Travelers came from across space to see it. Some cried. Others left gifts. All of them left changed. In time, the Korthari Empire transformed. They stopped training children to hate. They stopped believing they were alone at the top. A new council was formed, one that included voices from Earth. Peace wasn't perfect. Mistakes were made. But now, those mistakes were shared, not hidden. Earth had become the heart of a new way of thinking. Not because it was the strongest, but because it had been the most human, and far beyond, in the void where stars are born. A message floated on an old signal. It carried Earth's original reply, the one sent when the war first began. It wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It was calm. It said, "We see you, we hear you, but we will not kneel." That signal became legend. And every young cadet, human or alien, learned it before they ever touched a weapon. Back on Earth, Caleb stood alone on the cliff where he had once met Varrock. Snowflakes drifted softly. He looked up at the sky, no longer afraid. He smiled, knowing that Earth had spoken once, and the galaxy would never forget.